Hey, thank you all so much for coming out to hear this presentation. We're going to talk about the future of recruiting and how Salesforce and Asymbl are truly helping our customers and their recruiters spend less time on administrative tasks and more time on what truly matters. And that's building trust and relationships with both our hiring managers and our talent. So I want to introduce myself. My name is Brad Owens, and I've been in your shoes. I have been in a bullpen. I've been making send-outs constantly and having phone calls over and over again saying the same things time and time again. I've owned and ran an external recruiting firm for over a decade. I have been a leader in an internal recruiting department for a publicly traded company. All this to tell you, I understand your pain. I have also had pieces of technology that never really fit what I wish they could do for my business. And then I saw Salesforce. And I went, where has this been all my life? I had that kind of moment the very first time I saw it. And since then, I've completely transitioned my career to helping both Salesforce and recruiters understand what this platform can actually do for them. And this entire week, throughout the past couple of days, I've just been more and more energized about what's possible with Salesforce, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with you all today. But before we get too far, I have to make sure that I cover off on this slide. Salesforce is a publicly traded company. Please make any buying decisions based on publicly available information, even though we're going to talk about some really exciting stuff that's coming. So let's take a look at current recruiting. And to do that, let's kind of go back a little bit to when I started, way back in the Stone Ages. So when you think about the way that I started, we had fax machines, we had job ads that were in newspapers, we had mountains of manila folders and file cabinets everywhere. And we spent our days combing through resumes, trying to match them up to job descriptions, making the same phone calls over and over again, and just trying to write cover letters that would appeal to hiring managers. Now fast forward to today, and yes, they've lost their cord from their phone. They've changed to emails instead of fax machines. They've got online job boards now, but is their job really all that different? They're still focused on all these administrative tasks that take up the majority of their day. When we all know that as recruiters, the best value that we can bring to our customers is to provide that value through trust and building relationships. But our day is not built around having time for that. Our day is built around all these administrative steps. So our technology has never really supported what we need to do. And I'm excited about what's coming because I truly feel like we are in this brand new era of recruiting. I feel like with AI and with what I call interactional data, which we'll get into in a second, we're truly at this age where being able to enable ourselves to spend more time on this value-added stuff of building trust and building those relationships, it's all possible. So I want to dig into interactional data with you because this is kind of the important part of what we're going to cover going forward. So interactional data. To be able to define that, let's follow a candidate through a journey with either a company that's looking to hire or a recruiting firm. The candidate starts out and they see maybe your job ad and they click on your job ad. All right, there's a good data point. They're interested in this potential job. And then they go onto your website and they spend, 3 minutes, 5 minutes if we're lucky, researching your company, understanding what you do. That's a pretty good data point. They might be really interested in what we have to offer. And then they give you the holy grail. They apply to one of your positions. Fantastic. Now they answer your questions. You've got their resume. You've got all sorts of different data that you can start making decisions on. And in a typical recruiting process, that's kind of where the data gathering stops. We feel like, okay, we have their resume. We've got what we need from them. We can try and match them up to something. But I, for one, don't want to be judged by just a single piece of paper. I am so much more than that to a company. So where this interactional data even starts is from that point in the journey. I, as a recruiter, would review that resume, and I'd say, hey, are they a good fit for this job or not? If they're a good fit, I move them through to maybe a short list, and I want to schedule an interview. That's a pretty good data point that this applicant is a good fit for this job, and not just this job, but other jobs that are like this into the future. And then maybe we have that interview and we have a whole bunch of feedback that we write in this candidate's profile. That's a good piece of data. And then we like them so much that we send them out to a hiring manager. That's another piece of data. And then we get feedback from the hiring manager. That's another piece of data. And then let's say we want to write up an offer letter. We now have all of that information that is within that offer letter. We're getting all of this different interactional data just because we're following this person through their entire journey as a candidate. And let's say we run a services firm and we want to then redeploy that talent. Now we have all of this data sitting in a single database that we can then start using AI to make decisions on. So it's that interactional data that's truly going to unlock what's possible going forward in recruiting. What it's going to bring to us is now if we start to have all this data flowing through a single system, all these interactions, we now have the ability to start automating our ATS. We are teaching our ATS that if given this set of circumstances at this set of our journey, do this next thing. AI can learn from that. It can start automating your ATS. Then we have the full candidate profile that we're building. We're not just talking about a candidate that is a resume, right? We're talking about a full candidate profile. Now, don't get me wrong, if the only piece of data that you have is someone's resume, that's all you're going to have to be able to match them up to a job. But what we're talking about here is going much, much deeper and developing a true candidate profile so you have the entire individual inside of your system. That's much easier to match to new jobs. And then think about how our system is then learning what the best recruiters do. It's learning that this specific set of steps has led to this successful outcome. The more and more that you do that, the system is now learning what makes your recruiter successful. And now even if you had a brand new recruiter fresh out of school sitting at their desk for the first time, they can now be just as successful as those top level recruiters at your organization. Everyone can be as successful as your best recruiter. That's where we start to get into the true value of this interactional data. So then why haven't we had this? Why don't we have the ability to actually do this now? Well, to tell you that, I'll tell you a little bit of a story. So I went and sat at a branch of one of the largest recruiting firms in the world. I sat down with two of their recruiters. Those two recruiters got a brand new job rec early in the morning, and recruiter number one opened up that email. Notice I didn't say their ATS. They opened up their email to look at that job rec that came in. They reviewed the requirements. They shut that browser tab, and they opened up LinkedIn. So you've got one of the largest candidate databases in the world, and the very first place you went was LinkedIn. Pretty bad sign. Recruiter number two opened up that same email. They saw the exact same rec. They closed that email and opened up another folder in their email that had all of the candidates that could be a good possible fit for that. It's like, you have a gigantic candidate database over here. What are you going to your email for? So we have this problem as recruiters. We have incredibly fragmented data. We've got data sitting in email. We've got data sitting in LinkedIn. We've got data on Indeed. We all have that spreadsheet on our desktop that has our best candidates out there. None of that is doing us any good if it's not in a single system. And then on top of that, we have all of our interactions that are happening all over the place. We have in-mails that are sent over here. We have the phone calls happening on our personal cell phones. We've got email that's sitting in Google. We have all of these fragmented interactions that are happening all over the place. And AI can't do its job without data. We've got to have a single source for that. So why not Salesforce, right? That's what we're trying to create as a possibility here. And that's how us at Asymbl Incorporated are actually approaching things. So we work with customers in a number of different ways, and what our customers tell us kind of sets us apart from the rest is we bring two key things to the table. One, I told you myself, I came from a recruiting role. Our entire leadership team has sat in your shoes. We have all been on a desk making phone calls, so we understand what you're going through and understand what some of the challenges are in a recruiting organization. Combine that with, we've also been developing on the Salesforce platform for well over 2 decades. I myself came from the mothership. I was a part of Salesforce. So we not only understand the platform, we also understand what your challenges are. And combined with those, we can make some pretty impressive things happen. And we're doing that in 2 different ways. Asymbl Incorporated is a technology company that's composed of both Asymbl. Now, Asymbl has very specific business process focused applications that act as bolt-ons to Salesforce environments. So Asymbl makes an applicant tracking system. They make time tracking. And coming up, I'll show you our newest product that we're really, really excited about. But what we do is we enable all those business processes that are now happening outside of a single system to be done inside of one system. So we're enabling all this data collection, this interaction data to come inside of Salesforce. Now, also we have Blueprint Advisory. Now, Blueprint Advisory is our professional services arm. It not only implements Asymbl and it helps staffing and recruiting companies get the most out of all of Salesforce, so all clouds, everything, all encompassing, but they also work outside of staffing and recruiting. They work in other business service areas, which allows them to understand what the best of the best out there are doing and how they're making the most of Salesforce and bring that back into the recruiting world, which, quite honestly, the recruiting world is in its infancy when it comes to Salesforce. So being able to have that combination of knowledge of outside and in staffing and recruiting, and also the technology to go along with it, it makes Asymbl Incorporated in a very unique spot to be able to provide value to these staffing and recruiting customers. So what we envision is this. We envision our customers to be able to assemble your tech stack. See what I did there? Asymbl Incorporated, assemble your tech stack. You're able to assemble your tech stack on a centralized solution. All of these interactions that we're talking about can all take place on Salesforce. That's what we envision as possible when you start taking advantage of a full platform. And then once it's on that platform, now you have Einstein and you have AI that has the ability to start making all these good predictions, to start helping you automate your entire system. Einstein is baked into Salesforce. Let's use it. Let's pump everything through that one single solution. And then we have data that may not exist inside Salesforce. You might have a database of resumes sitting somewhere. You might have data out on some kind of other system that exists somewhere else. So you've got Data Cloud that can help you bring all these data points into Salesforce. And you don't have to bring the actual data itself. You can bring all the things that are going to be relevant to help you do your job better, so you can bring in only that zero copy kind of metadata of your data that sits outside, so that you can make all of these decisions based on that data. And then we cap it all off with our Asymbl applications and the rest of the AppExchange ecosystem. You know, there's tons and tons and tons and tons of apps out on the AppExchange, but you can see all of them around you today. If you want to use any of those inside of your ecosystem and still get all the value out of it, that's what we're enabling on the Salesforce ecosystem. And we've been really lucky that Salesforce chose us as a launch partner in this new Agentforce announcement that you saw this year. So we've been named as one of the primary launch partners, and we've brought the Asymbl Recruiter Agent to market. Now, the Asymbl Recruiter Agent, which I'm really excited to be able to show you for the first time in public later, we're giving that recruiter agent a number of different abilities, but none of it is possible without getting all of this interactional data inside a single system. So it all starts with that. But with that said, I want to actually take you through and show you what the Asymbl Recruiter Agent can actually do with just a little bit of a demo here. So I'm going to move over into my environment. Now I'm inside of Salesforce. I'm running my recruiting organization inside Salesforce. And for today's demo, I'll act as if I'm a recruiter who's working for that organization. You can see I've got a number of different roles. There's lots of different things that I can spend my time on today. But just for today, we're going to focus on this staff accountant role right here. Now, when I typically start my recruiting for a position, there's a number of different things that I need to make sure that I'm going to come across the right candidates. One of the biggest things that I need is a job description, but this record doesn't have one here. So wouldn't it be nice if I actually had an agent that can help me create this kind of data so I can actually fill this job correctly? So I'm going to boot up the Asymbl Recruiter Agent. The Asymbl Recruiter Agent comes up in my environment right here, and I can simply just ask it a question. Hey, can you help me write a job description for this position? Now, the Recruiter Agent understands the record that we're in. It understands the job details, and it can come up with a job description for me. If I'd like to, I can review that before I save it to my actual job here, but we'll say I like what I see here, and I'm going to click the Save button. Now, if I scroll down, and we get the save, there it goes. When I scroll down, you can actually see that job description has been added to the job here. So now that I have my job description, there's another piece of the puzzle that I really need to understand. I need to understand what my hiring manager likes to see. That's always been that bit of data that has taken a very deep relationship with the hiring manager to understand. So Byron here is our hiring manager, and we've been dealing with Byron for a number of years. And Byron has hired a number of different people from us. You can see here, we've got all of his past interviews in our system. We also have all the other jobs that he's hiring for in our system as well. So we know a lot of information about Byron, and based on that, wouldn't it be great if we could get just a really quick summary to let us know what Byron likes to see? Well, our recruiter agent can do that. Hey, what can you tell us about this hiring manager, recruiter agent? And it can look at all of that data that we just showed you, and it can come up with a summary of, hey, here's what this hiring manager typically likes to see. Now, I've got two of the kind of biggest pieces of data that I need to make sure I'm identifying the right talent. I've got the job description. I've got what the hiring manager typically likes to see. Now I can start going through all of my applications to make sure I find the right talent. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to dig into my job applicants right here. And this is the part of my day as a recruiter that I used to absolutely dread. Now I have hundreds, if not multiple hundreds of resumes to go through. But I'm inside of Salesforce. I have Asymbl's Recruiter Agent. wouldn't it be nice if I could take what I now know of the hiring manager and what I know of the job description and come up with, hey, who are the best candidates out of all of these? Please save me all of this time. Well, I can do that. Hey, can you tell me what of these applicants actually has those skills that Byron likes to see? Now it's going to sort through all those different applications, and it's going to come up with the type of talent that would fit that description. And indeed, it came up with 2 others that I can add to my ATS with just a couple clicks, and now they're going to go from my applicant list into my applicant tracking system. So if I move over here, you can actually see both of those 2 candidates are now sitting here in my ATS, ready for me to move on to the next step. So my typical next step is I like to schedule interviews. So now let's focus on Philippa here. I want to schedule a new interview with Philippa. So I can simply just ask the Asymbl Recruiter Agent, hey, can you help me come up with some times that I might be able to interview Philippa? So I'm inside Salesforce. I'm a user of Salesforce. It has access to my calendar already. It knows by me saying, hey, I need to schedule an interview that I need to find an hour block of time that I could potentially use for an interview. And it came up with a couple different options for me. So I'll choose these 2 here. And just with a click, I'm going to say share with candidate. Now it understands I was talking about Philippa. I'm going to schedule an interview. It knows what email to send. And it went ahead and sent that for me. And keen-eyed viewers of you may have also noticed that it's automated my ATS. Philippa's no longer in my long list here. I've moved her to my short list. So I've got an interview scheduled with her, and that has moved her through my ATS. Now, I am going to have an interview with Philippa. I'm having other interviews with candidates that are in our system right now. Burke here is a bit further along. He's been having a couple interviews with my internal teammates, so I need to understand what they think of Burke. Now, typically my process is emailing all these people that have interviewed him, make sure I get that feedback, compiling it out on my own. But we're inside Salesforce. We have access to all that data already. So I'm going to just ask the recruiter agent, hey, can you summarize all the information on interviews from Burke Kelly? So it's going to look into Burke's record. It's going to come up with all that different information for me, and it's going to summarize the feedback from Burke. You can see here it spit out 2 different summaries of the past interviews, both of which look like they recommend Burke be sent to the hiring manager. So now we luckily get Burke to be able to send him to our hiring manager. Now, I talked about how much I hated going through all of these different resumes and applications. I'd say the second worst part is always coming up with those candidate notes. Hey, how can I make this one unique to make this stand out with this hiring manager? I would have to have tons of information on Burke. I'd have to go back through his profile, which I'll show you now. We can go into Burke's profile, and we can see all the different interactional data that we've had with Burke. We can see all the other placements we've sent him out on. We can see all the other interviews he's been a part of. And we can understand the feedback and some of the things that makes Burke stand out. So instead of me having to do that, why don't I just ask the recruiter agent to do it for me? So, hey, can you send Burke to the hiring manager? Now, notice what I told it there. I didn't tell it, hey, write me candidate notes for Burke that I could then send to the hiring manager. All I said was, let's send Burke to the hiring manager. It knows who the hiring manager is and what they like to see. It knows who Burke is, and it can understand the summary that it needs to write for that. And it's already wrote an email for me. And I can preview that email, and I can look through and make sure that it says kind of the things that I make sure it wants to say. And then with a click, I could send that off to the hiring manager. And, again, he has been moved from my phone screen over to send to my clients. So all of those things have been powered because we had that interactional data inside a single system. We now have the ability to have the Asymbl Recruiter Agent take actions on all of that data. So that's just a tiny little glimpse of what's coming from the Asymbl Recruiter Agent, but it's what's made possible, again, by AI taking action on interactional data that's inside of your system. So you could see from that, we can have incredibly fast interactions. We can have much more accurate placements. We can enhance our candidates' efficiency to levels that they've honestly never been able to see. Not our candidates, our recruiters' efficiency to levels that they've never been able to see before. And one of the things that I've noticed has held a lot of companies back is they don't truly understand how to get to the point of getting all this data to flow through one single system. So what I'll invite you to do is that is a QR code that takes you directly to our website. If you'd like to set up a time to talk to us, we're happy to help you get into a situation where you can take advantage of this kind of technology. Or we actually have a booth right around the corner over there. If you'd like to take some time out and come talk to us, we're happy to help you set yourself up to be able to take advantage of all this technology we're talking about today. But I will come to a close with that. I want to thank you all so much for taking time out to hear a little bit more about what we're doing at Asymbl and take a look at the Asymbl Recruiter Agent. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.